Deirdre Pierce, a 29-year-old cable industry professional, has spent all of her working life, the past 8 years, with the same company. When she began to feel dissatisfied with her job, she sought career counseling. Dee Dee agreed to be the on-camera client for the counseling sessions you are about to see. Four accomplished career counselors with markedly different styles and objectives each conducted a 1-hour consultation with her. The first counselor is Dr. Howard Figler, author of the Complete Job Search Handbook and principal of Howard Figler and Associates in Sacramento, California.
Hi Dee, I'm Howard Figler. I'm interested in helping you with your career, so tell me how you see your present situation.
My present situation is that I work in the cable television industry and I work in sales and marketing. I've been there for more years than I ever thought that I would be, which is about 8. That is since I graduated from college. The path to my life at Cablevision has been that when I graduated with a degree in communications, cable television was the industry that was the one to go to at that time. And I was very fortunate to find something in cable, and I've been able to rise up their ladder, so to speak. So I've had promotions and I've done different things. I currently have been in my position for 4 years now. And I'm at the beginning of management in my company. I like the work very much. I'm very good at what I do. I like the people very much, but I don't really see a path there anymore. And I'm beginning to think that maybe I need to look elsewhere. I never went through the usual interviewing process and assessment of my own skills when I graduated from college because this job fell into my lap. And so now I feel that I need to do that.
You said you don't see a path.
Yeah.
What sort of path did you want to see or would you like to see?
I don't really know what kind of path I expected to see. For a long time I was able to put goals in front of myself and get to those goals while I've been at my present company, and that's been great. But at this point, I don't really see the next move. It is unlikely that there is anything going on there that I would want to do.
You don't see something out there that you want to jump toward and move toward that excites you and draws you?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No, that's exactly right.
Okay. Tell me what you like about your present work and what you don't like about it.
My present work I like because I manage people and I spend a lot of time talking to people and using interpersonal kinds of skills that I think I've attuned over the years, and I think that I enjoy that and do that well. I also get to use my creativity quite a lot, which means that I'm always being challenged to come up with new kinds of ideas. In sales and marketing, it's kind of a gimmicky sort of area, which means that we're always trying to come up with new concepts to get people to buy our service or get our representatives enthusiastic or trying to market something new. So that kind of thing is very exciting to me, and I enjoy that a lot. The kinds of things that I don't like, I do not like any kind of statistical work. I don't like any kind of, I'm not especially partial to computers, though I'm getting better, but that doesn't come naturally to me. And some of what I have to do is computer stuff, and so I'm getting better, but it doesn't come to me naturally. So.
But some things that you like are being creative and finding a way to reach the market and managing people?
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay.
And I do like that a lot.
Yeah.
But I've been doing it for a long time, and I think I need to think about doing it in a different kind of capacity, perhaps.
Mm. Using some of those same skills
Yes.
in a different context.
Exactly.
For a different product or service or something.
Possibly, yes.
Okay.
I'm open.
Yeah, yeah, open. Why not be open? That's the way to be. What else is, anything else missing in your present position that as you reflect on this in your idle moments, something else you'd like to have in the work you're doing?
I think I'm kind of getting bored.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I would just say that it's, I almost feel sometimes like I've overstayed my welcome.
Yeah. Meaning?
Meaning that I think that when I originally graduated from school, I thought that I would be doing my job for maybe a year or two at the most.
Mm-hmm.
And it was during that time that I was hoping that I would figure out what my next move would be, perhaps graduate school, or I think I really thought graduate school. And somehow time has gone on, and I've been there, and I've progressed, and I've grown, and that's great. But now I'm getting itchy.
Let's do a what if, just a broad one.
Good.
What if the labor market were hospitable, you know, whatever was out there that you might want, you could have some shot at, and you had the talents you would need to do it, without even worrying about job titles. What's out there that you think you might want?
What kinds of things could I kind of see myself doing that
Yeah,
would
just
be exciting to
any
me?
thoughts fleeting thoughts that have crossed your mind.
Fleeting thoughts. My sister's husband had a friend once who worked, this is funny, who worked, I don't know who he worked for, but he helped do concerts. He was somehow involved with like promoting concerts of major recording artists, and he would travel with them and I guess orchestrate what went on with concerts that they had all over the country and all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this was quite a few years ago, and at that time I just thought what a cool job that would be.
Mm-hmm.
So periodically I do think that would be kind of a neat thing to do. I think that I periodically have thought about something along the lines of public relations or advertising, but what has kept me away from seriously thinking about those areas is that I don't really know if I'm aggressive enough or assertive enough. I don't find myself, I'm not a cutthroat kind of do or die sort of person, so I don't really know about that, but I've periodically considered something in those areas. Any kind of recently I've been thinking about events, people that say work on the Olympics or work planning major kinds of events. I think that kind of work would be interesting for me.
There's some common ground in a couple of things you described, in that they're high-profile events, concerts, events, things that are public things that are happening that you have some hand in making happen.
That's true. I hadn't, yeah, you're right.
And let's just try this on. They take the present you up to this point, the work you're doing and things you've done in your life. How do you see the things you've done connecting or applying to these kinds of events that...
I actually do see them relating because, one, as I said, much of what I do right now is manage people. And I see that these other things that I'm mentioning, I do see a connection there, in that it would be working with a number of people and kind of orchestrating many different bodies. And sometimes I think that I also, in my current job, have to use different organizational kinds of skills because I'm always juggling several balls at one time. And I see that that would also be something in the new areas that I'm discussing that would relate. In addition to that, I think that I mentioned to you that some of what I do has to do with coming up with new concepts. And I like to think I'm a very creative person, and I am. I can be very clever with creative things. And I think that that, of course, would somehow relate, because my creative juices, I would imagine, would always be challenged. And I think that I have those skills.
So you could imagine yourself being involved in planning, organizing, and the creative aspect of what's going to happen and how do we promote it, and a lot of different dimensions.
I'm not really sure about what dimension, but yes, I do see those things, yes.
Okay. And clearly there are those kinds of work out there.
I guess so, but you know, it's funny because it's hard for me even to imagine, just as I said, the person I'm thinking about who did the concert kinds of work. I have no idea who he even worked for. I don't. I have no idea how people find jobs like that, or if you would be working for a record company, or would you be working for an advertising agency, or what. So it's funny to think that it's out there, but I wouldn't know how to look.
Well, you know, that's really the how-to part. That's the how do you find them, what are they called, how do you get there. I'm not real worried about that part. I think if it's something that attracts you, that you'd like to look into, you can find out the how-to part. I can affirm that there are people out there who do that, and you know that too.
That's true.
They can be found, they don't hide under a rock, and I think it's generally true that lots of people get into those kinds of work in lots of different ways, so clearly it's open to you until you find out otherwise. The possibilities are there. I'd like to back up and just kind of ask you a couple other things, because I think part of trying to help you is getting to know you. And besides what you've said so far about your present work that you like and you don't like, what else is true about you and your life that you like in your life that maybe outside of work, that just sort of, if you were going to describe Dee Dee to somebody, what is something else you like in life?
I think that I'm always in some way, shape, or form, always looking for some kind of excitement. I love to travel, and I've traveled quite a lot. Let's see, I love international kinds of things. So I get a real thrill out of anything having to do with another place or of a different culture. I'm very interested in the arts. I love museums. I like the ballet. I love to go to the theater. Any kind of things where I get to go out and see things and experience something new. I would say that would sum up a little bit who I am.
You sound like a well-educated person who likes a lot of different things.
I do like a lot of different things, and I do think that I've been very fortunate in some ways, and I think that I would say that I've seen many things in many places, and I would in some way either my work would need to take me places, or my work would need to help me be able to afford to go to places. So that's very important to me, and I continue to always have to do that all the time. So I have to say.
Well, besides paid work, outside of paid work, just anything. What have you done that you felt good about, that sticks in your memory, that for you?
I had a great job when I was in college as an intern for a television talk show, and I thoroughly enjoyed that work. I would take people to the studio and give tours of the studio and kind of do the prep work for the audience and tell them what kinds of things to expect during the show. I would prepare the guests. I would assist the producers. I really had a great time with that job. That was a fun job. And I met all kinds of really interesting people and had all kinds of fun stories. It was very exciting. That was an internship. And if at the end of that internship, if they had miraculously said, Dee Dee, we've got this job for you, we won't pay you much, but come work here, I would have done it. But there were no jobs at that point. But it was a tremendous opportunity, and I really enjoyed it.
How about today, if there was something like that?
I'm sure I could really enjoy that too. Yes, that was lots of fun. Somehow, it's funny though. In the years since, with my current work, I sometimes worry that the years that I've spent since then have kind of taken me away from that area. So I don't really know if it would be easy for me to go to a place and say, look, I did this in college, I was great. Now I manage people in a sales and marketing department, but it kind of relates. Please give me a job. I don't know. I worry that would not go over, but...
Well, the key is
you
can move back in that direction if you want to. If your drive is strong enough, then I would always say to you, look, if that's where your heart is, and that's what's pulsating for you, then move in that direction and see what you can do. What did you especially like about that? What really stuck for you?
I very much enjoyed all the work with the audience, and I liked preparing people for the show. I don't know why I thought this was a great thing, and I would get up and talk to the group of people that were there to watch the program. And I'd point out the lights, and I'd tell them not to look at the camera, and I'd do all kinds of stuff like that. And it was fun for me. I don't know why. And I also enjoyed the tour guiding kind of aspect of that work. And I would say that the other portion of it that I enjoyed was assisting in doing research for upcoming programs. That was also fun for me, because we were always challenged with what kinds of what can we do to get people to watch. And
I noticed at least two things in what you've said so far. The background is you like events that are of high profile and importance. You like being involved with them, but the two parts seem to be you like to some extent to be out front with it, to be out having connection with the people the events are reaching. And you like a lot of the behind-the-scenes things, too, the research, the creativity, deciding what's going to get put in where. So you have a sort of a multiple talent that you can bring to being involved with events that really draw you.
That's interesting.
So there's stuff there that is you that can apply to the kind of things, the kind of events you want to be involved in, certainly enough for you to move in that direction and pursue it, explore it. But that's me talking. How do you feel about that?
It's funny to hear you say that. Some of these things I have thought about over time, but when I actually say it and I hear you respond to what I'm saying, I had never really considered it that way.
Okay.
And that's interesting to me, and that's very intriguing.
It actually feels exciting to you to imagine.
It's very intriguing, and also to kind of imagine whether my skills and what I have been doing could somehow relate to the things that I'm considering and what I'm talking about.
I would always want you to go forward on the assumption that the skills that you have could be applied, and find out where they could be applied, and go forward until somebody tells you absolutely can't. So there's really something there that's drawing you, and you've got stuff you can apply to it. Now let me ask you a key question.
Okay.
What's stopping you? Because really, as you're presenting it to me,
that's a very good question.
You could be exploring those fields, I'll call them high-profile events. You could be exploring them now and finding out how you get into them and how you apply and how you make yourself the best possible candidate. That's all out there for you. So a present question is, what's stopping you?
I think that it partially must be that this really would be the first time that I've ever had to really go through an interviewing process. When I got my present job, I never really had done any kind of interviewing or anything like that, and the job came to me very easily, and I didn't have to do very much. So part of what must be stopping me, if I'm to be honest, must be the fear of kind of going out there and presenting myself and trying to make it happen. So that's funny because and also I think that part of the fear is that what I am doing, I could do for many. I mean, I could be there and be happy for a long time. They pay me well. I'm good at what I do. I like the people I work with. So that's very comfortable, and that sometimes begins to feel good.
Comfortable and safe, but,
Yeah, exactly,
verging
exactly.
on boredom.
Exactly.
And so
Exactly.
back to
So I need to stir it up, and I know that I need to stir it up, which is why I need to talk to you.
Yeah.
But I do need some push. So it's kind of, it's funny because when you say these things and I hear them, I think, wow, that's great. I should just do this now, and I'm really excited. And I hope that I can continue to have that push because I feel it now. But tomorrow when I go back into my office and I'm very comfortable again, I don't know what happens. So.
Well, it can be a pillow, the
Yeah.
job. But let me ask you this.
Sure.
Let's stretch it out a little more.
Okay.
You said you're afraid of what will happen if you go out and explore and put yourself on the line.
Did I say afraid? Yeah, maybe I did.
What are you afraid would happen or might happen?
Oh, that people would just say that was not possible, or that I know what you want to do is just like it's not happening. And also, I think it gets back to my not being especially assertive or aggressive. I'm really not like that. When I'm in a situation like at my own place now, in my own position now, I'm very much in charge of things, and I'm good, and I'm there.
Yeah.
But to kind of put myself out and say, okay, I want to do this now, and that kind of thing, that's scary to me. It's a little scary.
And you're afraid if somebody said, no, Dee Dee, this...
It's not going to happen.
This won't happen.
Never going to happen.
That you're afraid that you would then back off.
Yeah, because I would just say, oh,
feel-
well, I guess it wasn't meant to be. I can just see myself like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
well.
So let's get back into the fear that you have of, gee, if I go out there, they may
Is
not
this a
want
common
me.
fear?
Yeah,
I mean, is
sure.
it really?
Oh, sure. Yes.
Okay.
Very much
I'm
so.
not alone.
It's a normal, healthy fear to recognize that things may not go the way you want them to go. But it's your decision about whether to get out there or not. Woody Allen said 80% of life is showing up. And I think in career development, there's something to that you're being willing to say, well, I think I'm going to look at that. I'm going to move in that direction. So again, about the fear, how would you feel if somebody told you it wouldn't work or whatever? How would you feel about trying to work through that resistance and keep at it?
That would be very hard. That would be very hard for me.
Hard because?
I think that I would tend to feel, since I'm in a safe, excuse me, and comfortable kind of environment, career-wise now, I would feel that it would be very easy for me to retreat back into that and just say, okay, well, I guess it wasn't meant to be. So I'm just saying what I think would be my honest response to that. Now, the thing to do, I guess, is to see how I could overcome that and not have that happen. But that, I believe, is my natural inclination.
Your inclination would be to prefer the safe, to back up, say, well, this is okay, this will work for a while.
Exactly, yeah.
It's like you don't feel bad enough to get out of the situation you're in, and you're not attracted enough to the pull of the new thing.
Well, I guess I've not been attracted enough about the new thing because at this point I don't feel that I know enough about it. I'm not quite sure what the new thing is. And it's becoming more clear to me over time, but this is a rather new concept for me because part of the problem has been in the past. Well, yeah, you're safe here, you're comfortable, but you want to leave, but gee, what are you going to try to leave for?
There are some intermediate steps that I think would be helpful for you
Oh,
at
please.
this point.
Okay.
And I call them reality tests.
Okay.
And they're ways of stepping out and investigating, getting better information about the fields you think you want to go into than you currently have without making a commitment to it. We can think about some kind of common sense reality tests.
Oh, I'd like to do that.
First, talking to people who are in it. First, finding them. Just simple, straightforward detective work. Find them, talk to them. Next might be a certain amount of volunteer work, like maybe spending a couple of hours a month or a couple of hours a week or whatever in one of these exciting new fields that you think you might like to be in.
Yes.
Another might be a little more extended exposure to them. Another might be getting involved in a project. So you can think of reality tests as ways of putting your toe or your ankle or your
I
calf
think I would like that.
in the water. And you have to choose to make those reality tests, but they're not ones where you put your whole self on the line and have to get totally flummoxed and rejected and so forth.
I think I've thought about doing sort of the informational interview type of thing, but I had not considered the other things that you're talking about, perhaps doing volunteer work or getting involved with the project. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Those intermediate steps give you a chance to see how much are you really attracted, how much does it really drive you and excite you, and if the closer you get to it and the more exposure you get, the better you like it, that gives you courage to deal with the uncertainties of stepping out and moving in that direction. Courage is what this is about. It's about anytime you make a change or contemplate making a change, there's anxiety, there's uncertainty, life is not safe, and it's knowing that what you're moving toward is compelling enough to you that you're willing to deal with the stuff that comes with it. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. It really does. One question that I have is, excuse me, how I might best begin my search in terms of, I don't know. I mentioned, for instance, I'm not sure where these jobs are or that kind of thing. Do you have any tips for me in terms of how I might begin to investigate that?
Well, the Career Center, any Career Center, a good college and university, can give you information about where the jobs might be found. But I would say to you, without having any more information at this point, go with your intuition. Go with whatever your gut tells you. Where do I think some jobs might be that would really excite me? And go according to your best instinct and your best guess. And you won't be too far away. Maybe you'll be 30 degrees off, but you'll meet somebody who will introduce you to somebody else. So go with your instinct at this point. You don't have to have an exhaustive array of information on the world of work, because if you tried to get that, you'd never get it. We're always working on incomplete information, so go with your intuition. If I said to you, Dee Dee, intuitively, go out tomorrow and find somebody who's doing work that really is compelling to you, where's the first place you might look?
I probably would go to the place where I had done my internship.
Okay, good.
None of those people are there now, but I would go there.
Sure. It's as good a place as any to start, because you're being drawn by something that feels right to you, that feels interesting.
Intuition is very important to me, and I often feel that I do my best when I'm going by my gut feeling.
Yeah, well, we're on the same wavelength, because that's the way I'd like you to make all your decisions, really by your intuition, your instinct, your gut feeling about what's right for you. Even though it feels like you're walking through the fog at times, you're not quite sure where you're going to land up. Just follow your intuition. It'll take you places that really are of interest, and you'll learn as you go.
It's interesting to me how this path has been developing, because for a few years I was very comfortable and enjoying what I do, with no kind of I had no qualms with anything, and it's only been in about the last year and a half or so that I've begun to think, well, maybe this isn't quite it, and a development that I thought would happen, where I would be promoted into the next kind of phase didn't ever happen, and therefore I was disappointed by that. So it's funny to me that I see the way that I work, and I know that doing things very methodically is important to me, and I have to be very sure of whatever it is that I am doing. So kind of going through this exercise now is it, as I think about it, I realize that this is exactly the way it should be happening because I know how I am, and again, this is all with my gut and instinct.
And gut and intuition carry with it some uncertainty. You know,
Yes.
if you waited until you were completely sure, you might never do it.
Right. Right.
So there are really two sides of this. The discomfort of comfort. That's kind of like an Eastern paradox. The discomfort of comfort, that you've gotten so comfortable in your present situation, you've gotten bored, and you don't like that boredom as much anymore.
No.
And you have a right to look toward the excitement, to cast around and look around. Where's the excitement? Where can I get jazzed up again?
Right.
You really have a right to that.
Yes.
And now you're just summoning up the courage to look for that
Yes.
excitement. And reality testing gives you ways to do it without making wholesale leaps in the dark.
So for reality testing, you would suggest one, investigating with the college the various information that they
Sure.
have on any kinds of career areas.
Yeah,
That's one.
It's a beginning. The most beginning level of reality testing is to read about information that's out there. But moving quickly to the next level, which is to find people who are doing things you think you would really perhaps like to do. The personal contact, in person. Next level is the volunteer work. Next level is maybe get paid part-time for a project.
Yes.
And you keep working level by level to greater levels of involvement. And if your excitement builds
Continues.
in the process, then your heart is saying yes, yes, yes.
I see that. That's a very good idea.
Yeah,
I will work on that.
yeah.
I think that I could see myself doing it, and that works for me.
Okay.
I think, but once again, it works for me. But I can see myself doing it. It will take time, but I do see that I have something that I could strive for.
How do you feel about the uncertainties that might happen along the way? Somebody along the way might give you a negative bump or something, or they might have, you might run into a negative person. How would you work your way through that resistance?
I think I would have to go on to another reality test, perhaps.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, I need to continue to reinforce what it is that I think that I'm good at, and perhaps talking to people that can kind of continue to support my desire to change.
Yeah.
And I think I need to surround myself with people who would encourage me to continue to do that.
Here's a question I'd like you to be sure to ask as you're out there making contact with people. How do the skills that I have developed so far in my working life, how can those skills be applied to the kinds of work that you do? That'll help you so that you can get from a source of expertise the connections between who you presently are and who you want to become.
Yes.
It'll give you confidence to see that the connections can be made.
That there really is a connection.
Yeah, oh, there's lots of connections.
Yeah.
I know there are, but I need for you to hear that from the
Yes.
people in the fields themselves. You have an abundance of what we call transferable skills. You have them, and they're there, and they can be applied, but you need to hear that from them. I would want you to continue to follow your intuition and keep wading in there. As long as it feels good, you keep going, the excitement level gets revved up, and somewhere in the process you might find something you don't like, but what you're really doing is shaping your idea of what you want by having first-hand contact with people whose work really excites you. You're shaping your image of what you would like to be. I think it's a cumulative process of building your courage. As you get more and more exposure and get more excited, the excitement pulls you and you say, yeah, I think I'll I'll keep moving in this direction. And I'm not sure exactly how it'll work out, but I like it enough that I'll keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. Because the courage is an ingredient in the process, the courage to wade through the uncertainties and to deal with the flack, whatever.
Yeah, I see that. I see it.
Okay, what I think would be helpful, you tell me if it would be to imagine what you're going to do next and pretty immediately. What sort of reality tests you see that you could and would do in the next week or so.
Okay.
That would move you toward that excitement that's out there pulsating that you think might really be your next move. A couple of reality tests.
Yeah. I guess the most obvious one, as you mentioned, would be for me to do a little research.
What kind?
I guess that means that I need to get to the career library, and some of it I'm not even sure how I would look it up. Well, I guess one could be considered events planning. Another might be under promotion or something to that effect. Sometimes I get stuck because it's hard for me to even figure out what it is I'm actually looking up. But I guess you find out when you look it up and it's not quite right.
Well, there's some in printed literature. I would like to see one of your next steps be finding such people in person, even if you're not sure they're exactly the right people.
Oh, really?
Because just reading about it is typically not enough.
Okay.
You got to get out and get in front of people. Can you see yourself doing that?
That's tougher. That's tougher. But I suppose I could. Yeah.
How would you do it?
I think that it means that one of the things that I need to do is to kind of let the word be out among my own network of friends and family that I'm very serious about making some changes. And I think that if I do that, it's always surprising to me once you sometimes get a word out like that, that someone will say, oh, well, I think, I have a friend who has a friend who, that kind of thing.
That is very true, and I'd like to see you be more deliberate about that in contacting the people you know, the people that you're comfortable contacting, your own network, and tell them specifically, here are the kind of people I'd like to meet. Do you know anybody? Do commit yourself to contacting a certain number of people in your network.
Small number.
Your network is small?
No. I'm thinking, no, my network isn't small. I'm just thinking to keep myself motivated and not to get too scared. I have to make it a small number.
Okay. You pick the number that works for you and commit yourself to it and make those contacts, and that'll really get you rolling. If you feel like that will work for you.
I think I can do that, actually.
Okay. Thanks. It's been good talking to you, and I'm confident that things will work out for you as long as you follow your intuition and move toward what excites you.
Thank you. I need to hear that. That's good.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Great.
When I watched the tape of my session with Howard Fiegler, the thing that was most amazing to me was that I actually did what he said to do. I had implemented his ideas. He was also very challenging. He asked questions that really made me stop and think. The most interesting question to me in retrospect was what was stopping me from going out and doing what I needed to do. In addition to that, I think what I really liked about my session with him was that he tended to really listen to what I was saying. I felt that he was paying very close attention to me, and I felt that he was responding to whatever my concerns were. I also think that there was a very natural progression to the session as it went along. It built. And I was kind of surprised by my candidness with him. I guess because I felt so natural, I was able to be very open and honest with him. And that was kind of surprising and interesting for me to see when I viewed the tape. I felt that he was a very warm person, and I felt that over time we really connected very nicely. Howard Fiegler suggested something called reality checks. It was a new concept for me, and it was a concept that I liked very much because, as I think it's very clear here, everything that I do is very methodical and very slow. I'm in no rush to do anything. I'm doing it at my own pace. And I think that because he was suggesting that I do one thing at a time and take it step by step, that was very comfortable to me and very, very exciting. And I liked that idea. And I actually did implement those ideas. And I think I've been doing that by taking some time and exploring some other options. I have been doing other things that are helping me see if these are areas that I want to go into.
The next counselor is Priscilla Clayman, president of Career Strategies, a career counseling and consulting firm in Boston, Massachusetts.
Hi, Dee Dee. I'm Priscilla Clayman from Career Strategies.
Thank you for meeting me.
Well, it's going to be interesting talking to you. You have quite a good-looking background here.
Do I?
Yes, indeed. A lot of people would like to be working for Cablevision. People think of the TV industry as a really exciting place to be. And let's talk about what you can get in an hour. What can I do for you in an hour that would really be helpful to you?
What would be helpful to me? I'm looking for some kind of guidance in an exploration. I need to explore other possibilities for myself. I've been doing my present job for 4 years now, and I enjoy my present position. But having been at the company for a number of years now, I've never been through the process of exploring other career possibilities for myself. And what I'm thinking that I would like to do is to take what I've been doing for the last 4 years and perhaps apply them somewhere else.
Okay, so you want some ideas at the end of an hour? You want a couple
Yes.
ideas on where to go?
Yes.
All right, okay. I'll make sure you get you that. Okay, so for the last 4 years you've been a supervisor. Now you say on your resume you have some amazing number of people working for you, like 20?
Oh, between 15 and 20.
Okay, now there's an assistant supervisor or two that work
No.
for you? They all report to you directly?
Yes.
So do you hire these people, these 15 to 20?
Yes.
So what do you look for?
I look for enthusiasm. I look for self-motivation. I look for people that can stand having a fluctuating paycheck.
Oh, because they're on some sort of a...
They're on salary plus a commission.
How about you?
And I'm on salary, but I'm bonused every quarter, which means that I can make some extra bucks that way. But I think it really takes a very special kind of person who would like to go into something knowing that they will have a fluctuating paycheck.
So how do you present that when you interview?
I think basically, by the time people come to me, they know that it is a sales job, and they primarily, I believe for the most part, have already been told that it is something that is not a steady paycheck the same every week. But I talk more about that in the process of an interview, and just talk about how the highs can be very, very high, but the lows can also be very low. But it is a very, it's an exciting position, and one of the things that I think that I've done well, and one of the things that really comes to mind is the fact that the department that we have now, basically people have been there for over 2 or 3 years. So there's very little turnover. So I've not had the experience of having to do very much hiring, because when people come in, they generally stay. And I think that that's for several reasons. One of the reasons, of course, is the pay is very good. And when things are working well for them, they can make very good money. But secondly, I like to think that it's partially because they are in an environment which I've helped create, which is a very, I think, positive one that is kind of nurturing, I would say. I think people really like working in my department, and I think that that's partially because of the way that it's structured and also the way that it's supervised. I really think it's important that people understand that they are valued. And one way that you can do that is to have a very open kind of environment. And therefore, I believe that I've helped make it such that people feel that they can come and talk about things. And we do come up with very creative ideas. And It's a very pleasant place to work, and I enjoy it very much. However, having been there and having been doing it for the number of years that I have, I do think that it's now time for me to perhaps put this into some other area.
What's the fun part of the fun? Sounds like the fun part of your job is managing the people who work for you.
Very much so. That's
So what's the
very
boring part?
The boring part is I am not partial to any kind of reporting or computer stuff and looking at statistics and analyzing them and that kind of thing, which is very important in sales that you do that, but that is not my favorite area at all. But I need to be very much on top of what is statistically going on.
Oh, you get that
in
stuff from the
department.
telephone, right?
From the telephone, from the computer,
Right, you
from
would get
all
the
kinds of
telephone
different,
list of
yes,
how many phones
all
or
kinds
calls were
of.
reported.
You'd be amazed at all the kinds of different things
Right.
we can see.
No, I'm real familiar with
Yeah,
it.
there's a lot.
There is a lot. So you have to do reports then? And
Yes, and that is not particularly my favorite, but sometimes it's surprisingly there are times when it is kind of fun for me if I'm in a particular kind of mood, but I would say generally that is not my.
do you ever get a chance to present what your unit is doing to people who you work for?
On a monthly basis, we are creating reports that go to our general manager and to
But
the
you
director
don't.
of. Not really, no.
If you think about what your job looks like, does it look like a lot of people on headsets that you can actually visually see across your room, or is that how it looks? You know, it looks like a lot of people on headsets, really kind of like a lot of conversation, and you're sort of standing up trying to keep track of what's going on. Is that what it looks like?
Somewhat like that, yes. That's
It's
kind
sort of
of
like a real production environment.
It is a productive environment. However, because sales is kind of a hit or miss kind of game, there are times when there is very little activity, and at that time, it's quite hard for the representatives to be enthusiastic and happy when the phones are not ringing, because we like the phones to ring and we want there to be activity, and we have marketing that's going out all the time to entice people to call us.
Do you ever have anything input into that?
Yes.
Okay, so what
Yes.
kind of, how do you get input into what goes out in the mail?
We have a marketing person, and we make a plan about a year in advance, kind of a general plan in terms of what kinds of specials we're going to be doing. And we periodically are updating that all the time and trying to fine-tune it. So we gather and brainstorm on what kinds of things we're going to do to make the phones ring. And that's interesting to me.
Okay, so I want to make sure that I give you some ideas about where your experience might transfer. But I can tell you already what I know you would have to do in order to transfer. One of the things I wanted to say is that you probably are so associated with the environment that you're in
Yes.
that leaving that would not just be tough for you, but would be tough for them as well.
Meaning,
That if you have that kind of a work environment, you've created that kind of a work environment, and people have worked with you for 2 or 3 years, it would be hard for them as well as for you if you
yes,
leave.
I think it would be.
And it might
Yes.
feel symbolic to them.
Yes, I think you're right.
They might think, does she know something? Is it going to change?
I think that it would be a little bit of a frightening experience. There have been several changes in the last year or so in terms of management, and I believe that at this point I am the only anchor there. So it does come into my thinking that it would be very hard for the representatives, because I believe that I am a stabilizer at this point. But
So how stable is your job?
that's an interesting question. I believe that my job is quite stable, but one never knows. But I believe that my job itself is very stable. Yes, I would say so.
So have you had more than one boss in these 3 or 4 years that you've been in this current position?
Slowly things have changed. I have a manager and a director that are over me. I have just had a change in managership that has changed, and I have a new manager now. And that was somewhat of a disappointment because I had applied for that particular position and was not given the position. And that would have been the next step in my division. That has only taken place in the last 3 months. So that is something relatively new, and that person is now here. And everything's worked out, and it's fine, and I think he and I work very well together. But it was, I have to admit, a disappointment that I was not given that position.
Where is he from? Is he from outside?
No, he isn't. He too was a supervisor in the sales department of our direct field group. So we still do have a force that goes out door to door, but it's a much smaller group. When I first started with the company, there were over 100 salespeople, and now we have about 8. And he supervised that group.
Do you know him from back then?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay, so you're pretty good friends with him.
Yes. Mm-hmm. But it was very disappointing to me, I have to say.
So did you interview for it?
Yes, I did. Yes.
Did they give you who did you interview with?
I interviewed with the director of sales and marketing, and the director is the second director that I've worked with, and he's been with the company for a couple of years now, and I like him very much, and I respect his work in terms of what he's done. I interviewed with him several times, and what I was told eventually when I did not get the position was that they wanted to go with someone who had more marketing experience, and in addition to that, I was told that it was a better match, quote unquote. And I don't really know what that meant. I thought it might be, maybe it was an old boys kind of thing, I don't know. I had all kinds of things.
It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell.
Hey,
for people in a middle position like yours, where you are between a group of people that you have to work very hard with to keep them emotionally engaged in their work, and below the senior management of an enterprise, you tend to focus, and probably should focus, most of your energies and efforts on keeping the people that you work for really happy and motivated.
I would say that has been my focus, I would say.
I'm suggesting to you that you switch that focus just a bit, since you seem to have gotten that up and stabilized.
Yes.
And focus a little bit more on managing upward, as we used to say when I was in human resources. And managing how you are perceived and how you, what kind of assignments you get, and what people think of you outside of your unit. I'm going to suggest you do this for 2 reasons. One of them is that once you start looking at how you can add to your current job and make it something more like what you want, you'll start getting yourself a little bit out of your current circle. And you'll give yourself all kinds of excuses to talk to people outside of Cablevision. And what you really need to do is you need to get yourself new inputs, new ideas, new sets of friends and buddies. Okay, so one of the things I'm going to suggest to you that you can manage how you leave a place, just as you can manage how you enter, just as you can manage how you take over a new area or come into a new position. And that it's something that you should think about doing as opposed to just doing.
Yes.
Because it will matter both in terms of what kinds of references you have, it will matter in terms of where you can go, and in terms of what kind of help you can get from the people that you've been working with.
I am thinking about it, and you're making me think about it even more. But
okay.
I think that's
so like
very important.
What sort of time frame would you have in mind?
I don't have a time frame at all. I really am not. I don't feel that I have to be out by any particular time.
Okay.
I will go when the time, when whatever.
Well, I'm going to suggest to you is
that I make a time.
Yeah, that you make a time. In your case, you might try hitting the job market in September. Let's see then, planning back to now, what you can pick up between now and September.
Okay.
What is it your manager or your director know that you want them to teach you?
Oh, that's a very interesting thought.
Yeah. I mean, what can you add to your resume? Supposing you're saying, okay, and I know I'm going to leave, so before I leave, I'm going to pick up some more stuff, other than just plain bonuses. What is it that they can teach me that will add to my resume, make my resume even stronger? I think you speak so well. I would love to see if you couldn't get yourself some opportunities to do internal presentations on something, anything. I would love to see if you can't get to meetings or something with like general manager or up a step from you, or what can you do to do that? I mean, you're in control of the data, really. I mean, the data comes into your office like incredibly.
Yes, there's a lot of data.
There must be a lot of sexy data in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that comes.
Or there are people making funny remarks, or they're talking about the presidential election, or is there something that might be considered interesting and out of the way that those guys would never know if you didn't tell them? Isn't there some way we can use what you've got control of to get you a little more internal visibility?
I really have to, I will think about that. I really don't know. I have been very used to being in the position to conduct meetings, but again, I do that with my staff. And I attend a meeting every week with the director of my division and several other people who are involved in my area. But that is the only kind of upward regular meeting that I would.
What do you do? Do you ever get a chance to say anything, present anything, do anything?
I would not say that there is much presenting. There is a lot of talking. We're sitting in a conference area, and people kind of are going around, and for the most part, we are listening to my director talk about whatever is going on, and each of us has the opportunity to talk about what is happening in our own areas.
Okay, now think back your own meeting, right?
Yes.
You got all your people sitting around.
Yep.
Supposing somebody gave you something statistical in a report, what would you think of the person that had done that in your meeting? So you have to figure out a way of having some kind of impact on the meeting that you go to weekly, where they see you differently, where they see you at up a level. And I think one of the ways is this is somehow connected with these computer reports, if you can ask them for any kind of thing you want to learn. If you could ask them for, and you just have to think about what you can ask them for. We have to come up with a plan for what you can get out of them between now and September. Now, there are other ways of doing this that might give you a little bit more of a set of options.
Okay.
One of them you might do is you might try and see who else is doing something interesting. Who else has a team of people like yours that might have different incentive systems?
No one.
Probably not. But you know, I bet they do.
But no, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I bet they do in financial services. I bet you they got some kind of, there are teams like yours in financial services.
Financial services?
Yeah, when they're selling telemarketing. There's all kinds of telemarketing groups, all kinds of telemarketing groups. Then there are even telemarketing company providers like DRI and organizations like that around here that have rooms full of people they have to get to do telemarketing. What you need to do is you need to see who's doing what interesting that you might be able to borrow from. Now, you have to set it up so that the people in your organization know you're looking around for doing some new things, that you're looking for external input.
Yes.
So the way you're going to have to do that is you're going to have to meet with, I guess, your manager or maybe your director and say,
I propose that we do
I
X,
propose
Y, Z.
that I take an hour a week or 2 hours a week to sort of check out what other people are doing in telemarketing and see if we really do have the best team in Boston. And if there isn't something out there I couldn't learn.
I think that's a great idea. And I'm
Yeah.
sure that it would be looked upon very favorably.
I'm sure they think, oh, this woman is really trying to manage her job.
Sure, you're right.
Yeah, this is your ticket, right?
Yes,
To find out about what's going on of other places
Yes,
and to present yourself
yes.
and what you've done.
So it would sort of be a twofold situation.
Absolutely.
One, that I would be getting some input that could possibly help me in my current position, and secondly, that something like this would be an informational interview that I could find out about other job possibilities elsewhere.
Right.
I see.
You have an opportunity to present yourself.
I see.
What you need is lots of opportunities to present yourself in kind of comfortable ways. See, because my hunch is that you'll pick a next position the way you picked both Continental Cablevision and the way you picked Emerson, which is it was a real comfortable place for you. So you have to get out and see them so you can get a sense of, is it a comfortable place?
Yes.
Right? Some people don't pick that way. Some people have different methods of picking, and they pick by the idea of something, you know, or they'll do research on it, and that'll be sufficient for them. I don't think you're one of those. I think you're one of the kinds of people who pick by, does this feel right?
It is very important to me, I have to admit, and I have been on interviews outside of my present company where the feeling, you're right, wasn't right, and therefore I knew that the position was not meant for me.
That's right. So,
and I keep hoping that sometime I will go to something that will feel right. I haven't done a lot of that. I can just think of one or two instances that I have had an opportunity to interview. And you're right, there was something that was not quite.
So, you know, people like you, they should always believe that because it's true. The people who have that gift, they should look that way. What it means, of course, is it's much more labor intensive because you can't just read up about a company. You have to kind of get there and experience it in some way. You got to get a feeling for, is it my kind of environment? Would I be happy here? And so that means you've got to get yourself out more than the person who can do the library research and say, yes, this is the right next step.
Will it be as easy for me to do this kind of step if I'm thinking that I really would prefer to do something very different than my present position? Because I'm not necessarily convinced that my next job would be something, say, with telephones.
Right, but it's going to be built on what you can do.
I see.
So it's got, and I have some ideas on how you have to have some core with which you transfer.
Yes.
And people who know what you know from having managed the kind of unit you have, that you may have to transfer to a similar job or a next up job or a job associated with what you've done. But what you really need is to get into a bigger environment where there are more opportunities for you. You're in a real short laddered company, real flat. I mean, if you got the next job up, there are only, what, 2 or 3 more up to the top of the whole company?
There's only one more after that.
Right. So you need to get yourself in a different kind of an environment. So even if you use what you have now to get yourself in a different environment, take 2 steps to get yourself into something else interesting, like marketing or whatever else. I would recommend you do that, because they're going to look for what you've done as a part of helping you make your move. So what you really are looking for by getting yourself out and talking to other people is you're looking for information on what the rest of the world looks like and feels like.
You're right, I don't know. At this point, I really don't feel that I do know what the rest of the world looks like.
See, one of the obvious things for you to do is to go into some version of sales yourself. And you could just up the ticket. You know, the more expensive the thing you sell, the more you can make from it, just as that's true for you now. But supposing you work for Merrill Lynch, say, and you sold financial services over the phone, you could probably maintain your salary and move into a different industry. You'd have to make it. There are some things you'd have to do in order to make that transition. But that's a possibility for you. My hunch is that you would be really missing something if you did that.
How so?
Well, I think you'd really miss managing. I think that's what's the fun part for you.
That's very observant. I would tend to agree with you on that.
So I think the thing that's going to be hard, the trick is going to be for you is to maintain the managing portion of what you do.
Or find something else where I have interaction with other people on a regular basis, or I'm making a difference with whoever it is that I am dealing with. I don't see myself doing a solo act.
I don't see you as a solo act either. One of the problems with a lot of sales jobs, particularly the ones that are high-ticket sales jobs, is that they're pretty sad and lonely.
Oh, they are. They're very independent, and people that I know who have positions like that, I don't envy that. They spend a lot of time on the road alone, and I don't particularly envy that.
Yeah, so my hunch is your career is in managing people. Maybe in a sales environment, or it could be in a customer service environment where, you know, They were calling in for people who have, please tell me how to use my Microsoft Windows. I need to make it do this or that. I mean, you could manage a group of people who were customer service people on the phone just as easily as salespeople. In fact, there's a real link there between those two functions. A lot of times they want people in customer service functions and need to learn to cross-sell. So I think there's a switch there, but I think your real gift is in managing people. Because you describe managing in a way which most people don't.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you normally hear when people talk about managing?
Managing usually means control to them, a lot of people. And it doesn't mean control to you. It means setting goals.
No, it doesn't.
So you are what you might call new style.
I like that.
Yeah? I think you're a new style type manager, and I think people will look for managers like you.
Oh, it's good to hear.
Now, you have to break out of being first-line supervisor, and that is always a difficult move. You're now what I would call first-line supervisor. So to make the move to manager, where you manage people who manage people, that's always a tough move. So what you need to do in order to make that move in any company, you need to add the quantitative side, which you already have identified. You need to add the managing up component to what you do.
Some of these ideas are very, very good, and I feel that you have some real insight. But I have to admit that I'm somewhat disappointed that I can't just find some great job that has nothing to do with what I'm currently doing. And I just don't necessarily see myself continuing on this phone thing, which I like, but I have to say that I fantasize that I would be doing something completely different.
Like making educational videos
I
or
don't
something
even
like
know, but I don't know. Possibly.
Yes, you can do that. And the right way to make that kind of a transition is probably to think about going back to graduate school. But if you've been in your job as long as you've had and been as successful as you've had, and when you talk about it, your face lights up and you smile and you say, what did you say to me? You said something like, I want you to really understand clearly that I really like my job.
I do.
So you have that degree of sort of a commitment to what you're doing. There's something right about it. And you have to not just sort of think, what's the wrong part? Well, I'm in there a while, and well, I ought to be doing this, or I ought to be. You ought to look at the right part of that and try and retain the right part. And I think the right part is managing people.
When people manage people other than going back to school and getting MBAs, what kinds of things should I be investigating, do you think, for possible graduate programs? Because I do, as you see, there are many things that I like, and I still am convinced that I need to seriously consider doing some kind of graduate school work. And
yeah, well, that's step two.
okay, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Well, you shouldn't go to graduate school unless you know what you want to go to it for, because it's an incredible pain in the neck, expensive besides. And you should be really pretty clear on what you're going to get out of it before you go into it. That's what will make a difference to you. So, and you're really not outside of your own milieu a little. You need to get yourself out and to see what the rest of the world looks like. You ought to have a look at other corporate settings. You need to have a look at maybe a nonprofit setting. Might be kind of a fun thing for you to have a look at. And there is the easiest way of getting in. If you want to have a look at a nonprofit setting, the easy thing to do is to volunteer for the Channel 2 auction. Volunteer to do what you're doing. They would eat you up in a minute and walk over and talk to those guys and see what they do. See if you can't have lunch with them after you volunteer for them. Get a feeling for what that's like. So you ought to look at both. The big nonprofits do telemarketing all the time, particularly certain times of year. Harvard does it, you know. Come on, they all do it. Emerson probably does it.
Yes, I'm sure.
Go back to Emerson. But there's another way. What you're just using this telemarketing stuff for is your hook to move you into different environments. You don't have to stay with that. I mean, and you probably won't stay with that. But what you really need to do is you need to use it as your way, your ticket out of where you are. And my hunch is it would be hard for you to, because of the kind of person you are, to make a selection of, I've decided I'm going to be a violinist,
Yes, that would be hard.
Or
I know.
whatever, lawyer, or, you know, and without having a real sense of comfort about that. And this is a comfortable environment, this is a comfortable kind of job, I would really enjoy this.
Well, I think that part of my my effort right now is to do something to kind of shake things up, and that is why I'm seriously trying to think about making a move. So I'm ready to kind of shake it up a little bit.
That's good. New inputs.
Yeah.
New inputs.
Yeah.
New everything.
Yeah. But I think that I like the idea about the getting involved with different kind of organizations.
You have a perfect excuse. You'll make your job more interesting to you. If you do this, if you go out and you get some more ideas from other
Yes.
people, your job itself will be more interesting. You'll have something to say at those weekly staff meetings, which puts you in a different view, gives people a different view of you. First line supervisors, you're being stuck at a first line supervisory job is not that different from first line supervisor in all kinds of settings. They feel unappreciated, and in many ways they are. They handle the most difficult, the most strenuous, the most people-intense kinds of jobs. And managers, as they move up, tend to delegate the hard
Yes,
stuff,
that's true.
firing people, discipline, to the frontline
That's
supervisor.
true.
And they don't really recognize the value of the frontline supervisor, and they don't treat frontline supervisors as if they were potential managers. They treat them as if they were something different. So what you have to do is you have to act like a manager for them. You have to do what managers do in your company for them to treat you differently. They have to see you as a potential manager. Because what you want them to say in their reference when you leave is, she had a great career here. We saw her as a management person, a potential manager. Not that she was the best first-level supervisor we have here. We want them to say, both she was the best first-level supervisor and she has a great potential for management. Because you don't want to be hired externally by somebody into the similar kind of position and be in the same kind of first-level supervisory position in a place where you're going to spend 2 years getting it all set up to be the environment you want to work in. You want to make sure that you've got the potential to have the kind of career you want in the new environment.
Yes.
So my hunch is that thinking ahead from a standpoint of what can I not just learn in the next 5 months, 6 months, but how can I learn to sound like, act like, talk like what they expect a manager to be like. Because my hunch is it'll transfer externally. And some of the things that you might find fun and interesting and ways to enriching your knowledge in your current job as well would be to work more with the people who send out the direct mail.
Mm-hmm.
See if you can't do some of the writing. See if you can't sit in on how they're thinking about it. See if you can't sit in with them so that maybe you could feed back to them some of the data you're getting. So you remember, you're in control of the data.
Yes.
So you just have to make the data interesting to them. And it really is interesting.
Yes, it is.
So all you have to do is to get the marketing people to get kind of excited and interesting about what you're telling them and get them to exchange for you. You give them exciting and interesting data that they probably ought to have, and they coach you on marketing, because marketing you would be probably equally good at and interested in. So if you can add some more impact to your resume, you will add, as well as add some more interest to the job.
Mm-hmm.
You will expand your opportunities outside as well as inside.
Yes, I can see it now.
So my hunch is you should say, okay, I'm not going to necessarily leave in September. I'm going to make a choice in December if I want to leave or not leave. But in order to make that choice in September, I'm going to do certain things now to make that choice a possibility.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have looked at, and then I would make a list of the kinds of places you might want to have had a look at. I'm going to have a chance to have met and talked to 3, 4, 10 different work environments. I'm going to have 100 people who, when they hear Dee Dee, they think of me. See, you present yourself so beautifully in person. You're such an appealing person, and you present yourself so well and so articulately. You just need to get yourself in front of people. Well, I mean, you're the former kid actor, right?
Well, there's some of these ideas are really getting my blood going. So
You need to do more to get yourself to the point where you can choose. Remember?
okay.
Because of the kind of person you are, you need to have a feeling for it. You need to have a feeling for what the rest of the world looks
Yes,
like.
the intuition is
Yeah, you
playing
need
a
to
big
get
part.
you need to get yourself some new inputs. I'm convinced that as soon as you start talking to people about your ideas, they're going to get it just as excited as I did when you told them to me.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so.
All right. Well, so that's kind of how I would manage the next time frame, and I'd be, like happy to. You're going to need a couple things. What are you going to need? You're going to need the resume in case somebody asks you for it.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, it's time to do new resume.
Now, time to do a new resume, and it ought to show progression, how you've moved in your job. You're going to need to have certain answers. You have to have answers to certain questions. Like,
Is it going against me that I have stayed in the same company for so long? I somehow look at that as an obstacle, and I could see that some.
if it were 20 years, I'd say yes.
Okay.
It's not 20 years, and you had more than one job, and you should show the progression. You've had 3 jobs. That's not so bad. It's a job every, 3 years? That's a
2 or
typical
3, yeah.
80s type of career, and it's expanded, and you've expanded with it. So I'd show the progression on the resume, so I don't think it's bad. I wouldn't think it's bad to stay another 2 years with another title or expanded role or something like that.
It's surprising to me that it's been that long, because most of the people that I know are at a company for a year or 2 or 3 and then make a change. And I think I'm the only person that I know who has chosen to stay in one company. So I did wonder if that would be something that would be an obstacle for me.
Well, it is an obstacle if you had one job here and one job there. That's a tough one still in this job market. And there are a lot of people now who've had, who've been laid off, and so their careers look a little spotty.
Yes.
But they see then with a set of people interviewing you, see with a work history like yours, that you've done a good job, that there's something right about that job choice for you. So that they learn things just by knowing that you've been in the job for a while. So it's not necessarily, it's not really a negative, I would
Okay,
say.
that's good to know. I was concerned about that.
And so long as you're well networked outside of your own company, people know about you and you know what's going on, then you are really making the choice to stay. You're not really choosing to stay if you're just not getting yourself out enough to know what the alternatives are. You're just letting it happen. The choice is being made. You aren't making the choice. So the difference the way I'm talking is putting you in the position of making the choice as opposed to letting the choice happen.
Yes. That will be good.
Yeah. Oh, you're fun to talk to.
Well, thank you. I've gotten a lot out of it.
Good. I'm glad.
Thank you. And the resume, I think.
Yeah, we got some ideas on this.
Yeah. My session with Priscilla Clayman, I feel, was the most different from the others that I had. It was very business-oriented and very pragmatic, which I think is a different outlook. I felt that she also had very useful and practical suggestions for me. For instance, one thing that she talked about I had not considered, which was the manner in which I'll have to think about my leaving my present position, because I have been there for a while. I like it very much. And I'm liked there, and I think that experience of leaving will be very hard for me, and I think that I will have to consider the way in which I will leave. Another thing that I felt that she was especially interesting on was her feedback of some of the things that I talked about. For instance, in talking of my style of management and the way that I tend to go about what I do, it was very encouraging that she would talk about my style of management in such a great way. I felt that it was very encouraging and affirming, and it kind of surprising. I didn't expect that. I feel that if I felt that I really wanted to have a corporate career, or if I was unemployed, this would be especially useful.